How about this, ladies and gentlemen? It's a 2-video day for WDW Pro, and guess what? I think it's a 3-video day for Valliant Renegade. Have I got this right, or have you been on even more?
No, you're not wrong. Live stream this morning covering Comcast, NBC Universal's earnings call at 7 a.m. my time, followed immediately by a video premiere that I did on the upcoming Disney earnings call. So that's 2 on my channel, but 3, yes, if we count me sitting here recording this one, which apparently is also coming out today.
The man never stops.
Yeah, I need to stop at some point.
Well, we are here again. Same thing that we do every day on this channel. We're explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. That's what we do each and every day.
Yep.
One of the ways we do that, though, is that we unabashedly, we're fans of the truth, and we try to tell the truth wherever the truth leads us. That's where we go, and that's just what we got to do today. And luckily, it's not spicy at all, is it, Valiant?
No, none. This is be the most boring thing you've ever watched in your life, except it's not.
Thankfully, there's no enthusiasm for this at all. This topic there are no fans out there. Nobody's just waited on bated breath for what it is we're going to say. So,
yep.
Just a calm, relaxing. Everybody get in your feng shui right now. Just ease in. Okay, deep breaths. All right, let's do this.
Oh Lord.
From
Please.
The Hollywood Reporter. This is a little January 10th. Okay, but we need to do this for context.
Mm-hmm.
This article came out, FTX bankruptcy, Endeavor, Tom Brady among investors caught in fallout. This was by Alex Weprin, we'll say. Why is it, Valiant, can you tell me why all these people who write articles, why are their names so difficult? It's like every Smith and Jones in the world decided they're not going to become a journalist.
No, well, it just so that YouTubers like us would have to fumble through reading some of their names live as we get to it.
Love it. All right, so we'll cover this real quick. Fallout from the bankrupt crypto exchange FTX is impacting Hollywood. That's why we're covering this.
Mm-hmm.
Not only have the tens of millions of dollars they spent on advertising gone up in smoke, but a new bankruptcy filing shows that a bevy of high-profile people and companies are likely to lose millions in the bankruptcy proceedings. And then it goes on to list some of those. Endeavor, the owner of UFC and WME, Series B preferred shares. You get the idea. You go on, and it goes through. Tom Brady is someone who was involved in this. Robert Kraft.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Kevin O'Leary and many, many others. Right? This is a massive company. It's up there with the Enron situation as far as investors losing it all in a company that many up until recently were praising to the high heavens. Mm-hmm. So far on the right track.
Yeah, and just those names mentioned there were names that were either spilled by the individuals themselves, the companies, or other people affiliated, like when Kevin O'Leary went on CNBC and made the discussion. So, that what's coming up next is something that actually came from the bankruptcy court, which is more interesting.
That's right. And so we've all been waiting for this moment. I don't know if we all knew it was going to be today, but we've been waiting for this. This again from The Hollywood Reporter, and this again from Alex Weprin. FTX bankruptcy, Comcast, Fox, CAA, Netflix listed as creditors to crypto firm. All right, let's dive into this one. The bankruptcy of crypto firm FTX could lead a bevy of companies with ties to Hollywood out in the cold. Reuse of quite a few phrases and words there. Anyway, among the creditors are Comcast, the owner of NBC Universal, Netflix, Fox Corporation, Apple, CAA, and subsidiaries of Warner Brothers Discovery and Endeavor, among other firms. Now, this has a ripple effect through lots of different industries, but it somehow has a major impact with entertainment, specifically on the sports side. I can't tell you how many people involved in sports and how many companies involved in sports got connected with FTX, but also, like we said, we've got even down to Turner Sports and Turner Broadcasting. So Run us through real quick, Valiant. What does it mean to be a creditor in this situation?
Well, I mean, the term creditor is a pretty broad-based term. Bankruptcy court, estate, or probate proceedings. A creditor is anybody that steps forward and claims that the creditor or the estate, in the case of probate, or in this case of a bankruptcy filing, the now defunct company owes them money for one reason or another.
And that could be any amount, right? That can be a very small amount. It could be a huge amount.
Could be $5, could be $5 million or more. Yeah.
Right. And we've seen a vast, well, right here it is. I was about to bring this up. Tech giants, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Snap, Twitter, TikTok, etc. It seems like just about everybody in the world is connected with FTX in terms of needing money back. In fact, if you go and look, there are pages and pages and pages of just government agencies, which I assume, or maybe I presume, that has to do with taxes and having to do with investigations and FTX owing money based on that.
Yep.
But it's a massive list of different entities that owe or that are owed money from FTX, which now has declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy and cannot pay that back.
Yeah, and if you look at the actual specific state agencies, and it's a lot of states, and I mean a lot. It's the state of Wyoming's Department of Revenue. It's the state of Wyoming's Department of Justice. It's the SEC. It's the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Labor. Those are likely to indicate that they are, as Pro correctly stated, they're related to taxes, to licenses and registrations, and more recently, it would have been fines for basically just breaking the law, which is what FTX was, apparently a giant scam.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very good at breaking the law, not very good at much else.
No.
All right, so we've got up right now the paperwork that came out today. Big deal in terms of if you want to sleuth around and find out what's going on. This is the verification of Creditor Matrix, and it goes ahead and lists out the individual who is the managing director over this this filing, and it's regarding FTX Trading Ltd. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, there are 116 pages, and I don't know, that doesn't to me look like very large font. But there are 116 pages of this. Everybody from Shaquille O'Neal to Tom Brady to Facebook to Google to Meta to Alphabet to everything. Tons of connections to the NBA.
To Tom's ex-wife Giselle's charity 501c3.
Right. Everybody who's everybody. I mean, practically the entire economy of the United States and the Western world is on here. Yep. Have you ever seen anything like this?
It's incredible. And just real quick, as you're scrolling, just stop on a random page for me for a second, just to cue the audience in, because I think this was key, and I know we're going to get to this, but if we look, perfect, right there, you see a lot of names on there. You see like Florida Department of Revenue, Department of State, Florida International University. Those are probably all for advertising services, or for, in the case of maybe Florida International University, maybe they bought some ads in there on the campus. But Florida Department of Revenue and all that, those are fines, those are taxes, those are licenses due. But if you look, you'll see a lot of things on there that say name on file, address on file. It's important to note that this release that came out today, and there was a lot of deliberation on this by the court, and the judge said, look, we are going to release or disclose the entirety of the list of the corporate creditors, but we are not going to disclose individual investors for fear of, identity theft, privacy violations, or things like that. So where you see name on file, that is redacted data from the court filing by order of the court, because those names ostensibly are names of individual people as opposed to corporate entities or otherwise non-natural persons, a trust, a pension, a Department of Revenue, a college, a corporation like Netflix or Apple, which are listed on here. That's the difference. That's what you're looking at.
And that might be because if their name was listed, of course, that's an invasion of their own privacy as well. They didn't expect to be in this situation probably, but if their name was there, it goes to stand that perhaps some addresses would be on there. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, names, addresses, contact information. They don't want to do that to individuals.
Right. Understand. Totally understand with that. Yeah. And so as we're just scrolling through, I mean, everywhere we stop, every page, there are names on here of companies that that everybody knows. These are world famous names. But I want to drop down now because this is what everybody's waiting for. I don't know that it's going to be quite as exciting as everybody's hoping for, but I will tell you that we have went through every single page with a Well, with a magnifying glass, we have looked through every single page of this. We're going to talk about why in just a moment.
And these are listed alphabetically, folks. So it's not hard to do a search on this and find what you're looking for.
But page 110, just so everybody knows, that's how closely we have followed this today, is that I know the exact page to go to. We've got Walker's, Wall Street Journal, Wallaroo Media LLC. If you continue on down, though, there is no Walt Disney Company here.
That is right.
In addition, though, there's also no Paramount listed on this anywhere. And as best as we can tell, and we have really looked, we can't find any subsidiaries of those two entities anywhere on here, which I find peculiar. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But Valliant, real quick, why does it matter that Walt Disney Company is not on this file anywhere?
Well, I mean, when we look at the names on here, and we look at a lot of big tech advertisers, we look at a lot of big media advertisers. The New York Times or the New York Magazine is on here. Google is on here. Fox Broadcasting Company is on here. Netflix, as we say, there's all kind of big media names.
Everybody's on this thing. Like we said, the whole Western Hemisphere is on this paper.
Yep. And as that THR article correctly points out, a lot of those can be chalked up to FTX was buying advertising, as they were. Comcast Universal, who we covered this morning, is on here, who owns NBC. So of the four major networks, broadcast networks out there, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, only two of them apparently have a creditor claim against FTX: Comcast, NBC, Universal, and Fox. Paramount, as you said, who owns CBS, and Disney, who owns ABC, absent from the list. Apparently, FTX doesn't owe them any money. And because maybe FTX did not purchase any television advertising through their networks. That's entirely possible. But as you stated correctly, there's nothing on here from either of those two entities that are any kind of connective tissue. And a lot of people have asked about a possible connection with Disney and FTX. And again, there was a coincidence of timing back in November when all of this FTX story broke. Bob Chapek was released from the Walt Disney Company. Was there possibly a connection? Because we knew there were a lot of corporate connections out there to FTX. But this filing today seems to very clearly, state that, neither Paramount nor the Walt Disney Company have any legal claim to anything involving FTX.
And let's just say, too, that is stunning. I mean, it is really, really stunning. You and I have been very careful about the whole FTX theory when it comes to Disney. We've been very careful. We've said we've got to see data points. And even now, I'm saying that, if there's evidence still out there, I'm willing to look at it.
Absolutely.
I've just got to connect the dots. But I find this absolutely stunning that there is nothing, because when you think about just the scope of the Disney company, all of the channels, all of the content, all of the media properties that they own, all of the different avenues for advertising, and there is no connection at all. This is, it's hard to believe that this is the case.
And that may be possibly having to do with the fact that, at the time, and this is nothing that's earth-shattering. We know, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Kevin O'Leary, he did an interview on CNBC a couple of months ago where he let the name Iger slip out. And while Robert Iger apparently was an individual who invested in FTX or had some stake, whether an account or he was part, whatever it was, his name is not going to be on this list because he's an individual. But maybe that's why they didn't get involved, because the former CEO or chairman had a personal investment. But I'd be very surprised to find out that you wouldn't find on the individual investors list that we cannot see, at least for the next 3 months. Just as a reminder, folks, this judge has only stayed this non-disclosure for 3 months. He will revisit it in 3 months, and the court may decide to extend that privacy. We just don't know yet. But that being said, there may be a lot of other individual investors out there that run these other media companies that do have, just like Mr. Iger did, a stake, because there's a lot of big names on here, that we know that had investments involved in FTX.
Okay. Also, though, you and I were discussing before we came on, we were discussing the biggest investors and what those amounts look like. Can you cover that briefly with us?
Yeah. Now, while they did not specify as to who had claims of these amounts, the article that I was reading this morning did state that the top 50 creditors on this bankruptcy proceeding total about $3.1 billion. The top 50 out of millions here, okay, or whatever it was. But so $3.1 billion. The largest two creditors in the top 50 accounted for a credit claim of, I think, $280 million roughly, and I think the second place one was $250 million. So apparently at this point, the biggest creditors to this, we're not even approaching $1 billion. Still big money. This is still like one MCU Marvel movie budget, right? $250 million. Still big money. But
not big in terms of some of these massive corporations.
No, I mean, if Apple lost $250 million tomorrow to FTX, it's
like you lost a diet soda.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but that's true. Yeah,
So in terms of Disney, then it looks like. Well, let me ask you this: is there the possibility that there's a subsidiary of Disney that we're unaware has a connection, and that it's on this list somewhere, and that somehow Disney's funneling the money that was going to FTX through a subsidiary? Is that possible?
It's possible. Although, Disney has a ton of subsidiaries, it would be unusual to see that be the case here. I don't see anything on here that's jumping out at me to suggest that. But as you stated before, like I've said for the last couple of months, if there is something there, if there is some other bit of evidence that emerges to suggest otherwise, we will, of course, cover it.
Absolutely. And that's the whole thing about following the truth wherever it leads. Mm-hmm. To do that means that sometimes we have to go in directions that we didn't anticipate. And so maybe that will happen in the future. For now, this is where we're at. Let's also say, too, that sure, the FTX thing in Disney, maybe right now, that doesn't seem like a straight line that we can connect. But there's plenty of fires over at Disney that they're dealing with right now. You actually did a video earlier today about the upcoming earnings call. Can you give us just a taste of what we're looking at in terms of the fires that Disney's dealing with? And then we're going to put the description. I want everybody to go check out Valliant's video. If you've not done so yet, make sure to go check out that video where he talks about the upcoming battle between Iger and Peltz. But just give us a small little preview of that.
Well, the basic parts are the fact that there's a lot of expectation for this Disney earnings call to be, let's just say, very entertaining. And that doesn't even, count what could happen at the annual shareholder meeting roughly a month later. But certainly during this meeting, I think that there is going to be some questions during the Q&A session about Nelson Peltz. I may not come up during the earnings call itself, the scripted portion, unless there's like an amendment on file that they have to address or some proposal or blah, blah, blah. But they expect, quote unquote, Bob Iger to come out swinging with some cuts and some things like that. So we discuss all that in the video. It's 13 minutes, not very long, just to kind of give everybody a taste of what Wall Street is expecting to happen on February 8th, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be covering it live.
Any chance in your mind that Iger reconfigures the goals ahead for Disney Plus?
Oh, I think it's very possible. I mean, this is the first quarter report for fiscal year 2023 for Disney.
That would be a good out for him to blame Bob Chapek, too, if they have to downgrade those. Because then you don't have to go into the past and prove that your company did poorly. You just have to blame the future on Chapek.
I think that's what a lot of people kind of at least tacitly expect at this point, even though Bob Iger's not going to come out and publicly humiliate Chapek on an earnings call, but there's probably going to be some perhaps subtle digs in there. So we'll be listening. We'll be covering. So
now, in regards to FTX, we'll continue to cover all of the connections that FTX has with Hollywood. So people, listen, This has tons of tentacles going out in all kinds of directions, all through entertainment. Just miraculously, it doesn't touch Disney at all, despite the fact that Disney is a behemoth of a company with all kinds of interconnected companies with it. And yet somehow it doesn't connect. Maybe there will be some sleuth out there that finds this connection. I also want to quickly address and say that we have talked with Kamran Pasha many times about this. And for now, it doesn't seem that this is going to be substantiated in the near future. However, Kamran has had some of the biggest leaks ever. And I mean that. He has had some of the biggest scoops ever in entertainment for 2022. When he was ahead of the trades in terms of the hiring freeze out of Disney, how many days did he have that ahead, Valliant?
I think a full 48 hours, which for a story like that, it's pretty big.
I mean, that is a massive, it was a huge story, and he beat everybody to it. And so it needs to be said, I'm going to continue to check out his Patreon. I'm going to continue to pay attention to everything he says. I think he has fantastic sources. I think he has fantastic information. And who knows? Maybe we'll come back to this down the road. But for now, the FTX situation looks to be clear of Disney. We'll see where that leads in the future. Valliant, any final thoughts before we go, and where can everybody find you?
Well, you can catch me on Valliant Renegade or sometimes right here with Pro. We've got our anniversary show coming up Sunday, so we're going to have some fun that night.
Going to be huge.
Stick around for that one. But yeah, no, I think, like you said before, we're going to keep an eye on the story. If something new surfaces, of course, we will address it. But for right now, this is where we are.
And everybody, make sure you've got to be there for this anniversary show coming up Sunday night with Valliant Renegade. It's going to be fantastic. Great guests, great information, all the fun that you're used to. Definitely be there. 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right there on the Valliant Renegade channel. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that'll wrap it up for today. We'll have lots more information about entertainment for you coming up ahead in the forthcoming days. But for right now, keep having fun.